hostilities going on. It was just somebody, we call it today, murder. And so the revenger of blood was allowed to, but if a man did it, let's say we were working side by side, my hammer slipped and hit. Somebody hit me in the head and killed me. Then that man whose hammer slipped, he would automatically start heading out to that city of refuge so that he could go there. And as long as he stayed inside there, then Tony was not allowed to touch him. It was a place of refuge for him. Until he could stand before the council and explain exactly everything that had happened. And, you know, so they could deal with Tony and say, hey, Tony, come on, man. It was just an accident. He didn't intend to do it. I know, but he still killed him. And I said, but he didn't do it. And sometimes agreements could be made and things done. But most of the time, what that man would have to do is stay there until the death of the high priest. And when the death of the high priest came, and then he was allowed to leave his city of refuge and go back to his home and live peaceably with no infractions. And so we see on the west side of Jordan where Gad and Reuben and Manasseh are, there are three. It's called Kadesh, Shechem, and Kirjath Arabah, which is Hebron, in the mountains of Judah. Then there's three on the east of Jordan, which is that was on the west. Then on the east, excuse me, I said that wrong. On the east of Jordan, where Gad and Reuben and Manasseh is Bezer, Ramoth, and Golan. Now, these cities, as the children of Israel began to grow, they added more cities to the city of refuge. But these were given in one in the north part, one in the central, and one in the southern part of where they were living, so that each person that would commit this act could get there within a certain length of time. I think it was classified as a day's journey. Also, when they started dividing the land, they had to give out Levitical cities. Levitical cities were those that were for the priesthood. Because you see, the priest lived by the priesthood. They didn't go out and do other things like other brothers. They lived off of the priesthood. And so they were given cities so that they could actually house their animals and their families, and so they could live. And there were 48 Levitical cities altogether. You see, the tribe of Levi, which were the Levitical priesthood, they did not receive a physical inheritance in Israel. There is no land given to them. So their cities was all they had, because why? God was their inheritance. They performed the acts in the temple. So for approximately 13 to 14 years after the conquest, the final instructions, the national leaders are called together and reminded of their obligation to remove all Canaanites from the land, because you see, even under Joshua's leadership, they have not conquered all of the land. And the warning of failure was going to be severe. It says this, or else, if ye indeed go back and cling to the remnant of these nations, these that remain among you, and make marriages with them, and go into them, and they to you, know for certain that the Lord your God will no longer drive out these nations from before you, but they shall be snares and traps to you, and scourges on your sides and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land which the Lord your God has given you. So Joshua gives them a warning. You need to get rid of all of these Canaanites and the Hittites and all of them out of the land, because if not, it's going to begin to affect your life. The Bible tells us in the epistles not to be unequally yoked one with another. What good has righteousness with unrighteousness? It doesn't. Did we just lose them all?
Yeah, so one day.
Looks like we just lost them. If you can hear me, just be patient. We'll see if we can get them back. And so
Was sundown anyway?
huh?
Was sundown?
Yeah, something. That's what I mean. So what happens is he gives us instruction, but it's the same thing today. We got to make sure that we don't get messed up with unrighteous people. It's not good to go in business with other people that are in the church and stuff like that. marry within the church. You know why? Because you want to make sure that your family are brought up the right way. I know people right now who are struggling because they have one person that's in the church and one person that's outside the church. The one that's outside the church wants to take their kids to this and that and all this stuff, and the one that's in the church says, no, I don't want them going to that stuff. And so it causes a conflict. That's why when you now I understand there's people come into church and then there's the wife that comes in or the husband comes in and the wife doesn't. And I understand those conflicts and those do happen. But the fact of the matter is, if you're in the church, you need to be careful. Because that's what Joshua's talking to. He's talking to those who are in the camp of Israel. And Joshua 23:12-13, it calls the National Assembly in Shechem. Joshua reviews the history up until the occupation and then offers them a challenge. Serve the Lord. Choose you this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. No ifs, ands, or buts. We are going to serve the Lord. And you need to choose today. At the age of 110, Joshua dies, and his epitaph is brief but eloquent. Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord. That was his epitaph. That sums it all up. That tells him who he is. Amen. That's actually quite a powerful statement. Even if you were to die, if that's what all they could put on your tombstone was, he was a servant of the Lord. That's a very worthwhile statement. So if you go on to page 22, you will see here all the tribal allocations in the settlement of the land of promise. So we see up in the north right, this is on the east of Jordan, we see where Manasseh, and then below him Gad, and then below that is Reuben. We see this is the land that was given to each one of these tribes. And then over on the west of Jordan, we see how they are all split up. And if you read in Joshua, this is what it describes. Judah, at the bottom, of course, has one of the larger pieces of property because Judah is one of the bigger tribes. That's quite indicative. You know why? You know what Judah means? Does anybody know what Judah means? Huh? Nobody? Praise. Worship. It's all about praise and worship. And and when you look here, you notice that the largest group of people is all about praise. Judah's inheritance is the largest inheritance because it was the largest group of people. Judah was always the first out in the marching orders. Praise. Jehoshaphat, when he went out to fight the battle, what did he send out? He sent a bunch of singers and worshipers out to fight the battle. First. He sent the praisers out first. All these things, when you look through the scriptures, is so important when you realize what a name means, what a name represents, then it gives more importance to that name. Judah, praise. Now, Just a few questions. Where did the renewal of the covenant take place after the first two battles that were described? Anybody? Nobody? Where did it take place? I said it when we were going along. As soon as they crossed over Jordan. So if you look at the map, right down by Gilgal, when they crossed over Jordan going towards Jericho. That's where they renewed the covenant. What was the significance of the two mountains? Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, and what took place on each of them? That's where Joshua read the law to the children of Israel. That one stood on Mount Ebal, one stood on Mount Gerizim, one declared the blessings of God, and the other one declared the curses of God. We talked about that just a few minutes ago. Did you know that scientists, I don't know how they measured it or how they did it, but scientists can prove that there's a 24-hour period missing in our time? Did you know that? Has anybody ever heard that story?
Yeah.
I've read articles on it, yeah. And they know that there's actually 24 hours missing in our timeline back through time. And they can trace it. The same thing as they can trace DNA all the way back. Do you know where those 24 hours are?
When Joshua asked God not to let the sun go down before.
Thank you. That's one of them. Do you know where the other two are? There's two others. Because that wasn't, it says about a day. There's still a little bit of time left over. But yeah, that's the major one. King Hezekiah, when he was on his deathbed, and they said, what do you want? Do you want the time to go ahead 10 degrees or back 10 degrees? And that was 20 minutes. 10 degrees is 20 minutes. And so time went back 20 minutes. There's a 24-hour period missing. Yes, Joshua was the main one. Because he asked for the sun not to go down nor the moon to shine until he had defeated the enemies. And so, the sun stood still.
And the clocks.
Who's the rest of it?
Huh?
Who's the rest of it? What was the rest of the 24 hours if it was 3?
3. I'm trying to think of the third one. I had it on my tip of my tongue a few minutes ago now. I'll remember, then I'll tell you. Sorry about that, but that's the 2.
Okay.
That's 2 for sure, right there. There is a third one. I'm trying to think of where it is. And I think it's another 20-minute period. Anyways, I'm trying to think of the circumstance of where it was, but those 2 for sure. And I'm positive, I'm pretty sure there's a third one, but right now, I had it in my mind before I asked the question, and now I can't think of it, so I'm just being honest. How many years transpired between the last night in Egypt and the Passover observed at Gilgal? We went through that just a few minutes ago. 40 years from one Passover to the next. Joshua reinstituted the Passover, and it was 40 years. Okay? What were the 2 lessons that were learned at Ai?
Not to be overconfident.
Right? 1. That's a good one. What else?
That one person's in control.
Listen to God.
Do what God tells you.
Do what God tells you. Yeah.
That's once man sin affects
Yeah.
the family of
affects everybody.
That's right.
It affects everybody. Was anybody spared from the city of Jericho, and who wasn't? And thank you. Rahab and her family. All those that came into the house with her, they were all spared. What were the cities of refuge for, and what were the Levitical cities for?
Death through accident.
Yeah?
And what was the other bit you says?
Huh?
That was one bit of the question. What was the other bit you says?
Levitical cities.
What was the Levitical cities for?
The priest.
For the priests. How many were there? 48 Levitical. How many were cities of refuge? 6, thank you.
6.
3 on each side. 6, yep. All right. We have approximately 7 minutes left. Any questions? No? Okay. Well, you can find a lot of these things. A lot of the questions. That'll help you. Not necessarily are they on your exam, but they will help you to keep things in your mind. Alright. For those of you and some of them that don't have the books, if you can, I would suggest you get one, because this is what we're going to be using throughout the next few months. But if you can't, even if you get one, and then share it with everybody there. So maybe all 3 of you could chip in and get one. I can't hear you, so. Okay?
I have a question.
What's that?
Was there any specific reason why the tribe of Gad and Manasseh and Reuben were given the west side by Moses before?
Because they didn't want to go over into Jordan. They didn't want to live over there. They had cattle, and they felt the land was good for what they had and the purposes of it. They had cattle, and they felt secure over there.
So they asked for it before the conquest.
Yeah, they asked for the conquest, and what Moses did was he told them, he said, you're trying to weaken the hands of the rest of the tribes of Israel so they won't go fight, and they made an agreement with Moses to go over and fight until they conquered all of the promised land, and then they would move back onto the west side, onto the east side, and stay there.